Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Fast Pivot webinar. We're glad you're here. We're excited that to be joining TurnTo and just sharing one of their new products. It's a kind of a hot customer retention, social conversation product that we're excited to really share with you guys and really show you just how some of these conversations can start happening on your website. And so we at Fast Pivot are very excited that that TurnTo was able to kind of come present their new product and really share and show you guys how these conversations, these social conversations, can start taking place not necessarily on social networks, which are very valuable, but even on your own website. And so I'm happy to be joined by George and Gotti from the TurnTo team, and they're going to present their new product, AskOwners. So George, why don't you give us a little demo?
All right. Well, thanks so much. I'm excited to have the chance to present this. By way of introduction, TurnTo is in the business of providing social commerce tools to online merchants. I'm our CEO and founder, and that's probably all the introduction I'll do. The big idea here, this is a product that we started testing late last year and has been in production with over a dozen online merchants since then. And the uptake's been really good. I want to just give you a little background on sort of the big idea before we get into the actual demo, but I want to spend most of the time actually showing you the way it works. We call the social Q&A for e-commerce. We've given the product the name AskOwners, which we feel like gets at the key idea. But the umbrella idea, social Q&A for e-commerce, Q&A on the web is now one of sort of really hot topics with sites. I don't know how familiar you'll be with these, but sites like Quora and Stack Exchange, adding to the grandfathers in the field like Yahoo Answers, have been getting a lot of press in the tech community, but not much relevance of those to e-commerce per se. But there's another category of tools that brings the question and answer model right onto the merchant site. And that's what I want to talk about. The reason I put social Q&A in there, you might think Q&A is inherently social, but most of the Q&A tools that are out there really end up being about a dialogue between the merchant and the customer. Tools for getting shopper questions answered by a representative of the store. And the thing that's really new is opening up that dialogue so that it can be shoppers talking to customers about the products the merchant's selling. And we think the big idea here is figuring out how to tap the value that's trapped in your customer base. And almost everywhere, the story is pretty much the same. Most customers are happy. Not everyone, but most customers are happy. There's a lot of goodwill trapped in those happy customers that can be a marketing asset, but very few customers shout about it. I'm sure you all know the famous 1-9-90 rule about user content creation online, that only 1% of people online actually contribute original content. 9% of people are willing happily to respond to content that's been posted by someone else, and then the 90 are the people who consume that content but won't participate themselves. Most of the work around things like influencer marketing has been focused on that 1%. How do you get the people who are going to be loud about you? But that other 9%, and it may even be larger than 9%, is the part of your customer base that is very happy to answer questions about their experience with your store and your products if they're asked. They're not going to crow about it on Facebook. They're not going to tweet about it. But if asked by someone to whom the answer would be relevant, they'll happily pipe up. And that's the big idea here. Social Q&A for e-commerce is, in essence, no more complicated than enabling shoppers to ask questions of your past customers. And what I want to show you here is a particular model that we've developed for it. The old model for this was basically the bulletin board idea. You could post a question and as a shopper, and maybe someone who knew the answer would stumble on it, and maybe they'd eventually answer it. But in the end, it didn't work because you just don't get enough answers, and you don't get them in a timely way when you have to wait for someone who can answer it to stumble on it. And the new model that I want to show you, the essential element of it is the ability to send a shopper question to customers who know about that product and thereby get lots of answers and lots of answers fast, which completely changes sort of the effectiveness of the model. So let me switch gears here and show you a little about how it works. I want to show you a few Yahoo stores that are using it now, and then I will go behind the scenes and actually show you what a Q&A exchange really looks like. So Imitations is a Yahoo store that has employed our system for a couple months now with good effect. And there's one particular question I like to answer because it lets me illustrate a lot of different functions all in one spot. So can you see here underneath that Add to Cart button, Imitations has put a button here that says Ask People Who Bought This, which pretty much summarizes the function just in one little button. And then underneath it says see 7 questions, 34 answers, 28 comments. Now let me say up front, I picked an item here that got an abnormally high amount of content created around it. But if you look, you'll see why. This is the Imitation sells, they call it celebrity-inspired jewelry. This is the Princess Diana engagement ring that's now the Kate Middleton ring, and so you can see why this would have gotten a lot of commentary. But I'm going to go ahead and click on that button, and up comes what we call the AskOwners widget. And you can see at the top a great big box for me to put in the question, and it's very clear about what will happen. We'll email customers your question, then email you their replies. So, in a nutshell, that's what's going to happen. And we also show in this widget, and this is what I really want to call your attention to, the dialogue that's already taken place between shoppers and customers about a particular item. And you can see here, if it just says a shopper asked, that means the person chose to ask anonymously. Is this ring silver? That's sort of a simple question. What's the difference between the Kate and Diana rings? You can see there's just a lot of discussion going on here between shoppers and customers about this item. Some of the questions are short, some are long, some are factually oriented, some are opinion oriented. Most of the answers are positive, not universally, but on the whole, the positivity rate is unusually high for user content, higher by a wide margin than ratings and reviews tend to be. So you can see there's a lot here. Now, one thing I want to call your attention to is Jenny B here. So not all the questions have to be answered by other customers. There's a whole moderation back end to the system that enables staff to see all the questions that comes in and weed out inappropriate questions, and also to jump in and answer them. So here, Jenny B, who's staff, and is clearly labeled as staff, so there's never any question about the insiders padding the answers, has jumped in to provide the staff answer, but alongside a bunch of social answers. So this is, what you're getting here is just a mountain of user-generated content about this item. Now, one other thing, I actually early on asked a question about this item myself. So that's me. That's what I look like, where it says you asked. And I want to illustrate a few other features of the system here. Now, one thing is because I asked, when I see these answers, I have the ability to go back and forth with these customers more than once. So if you see that little link below CO's answer, it says reply to C. I can click on that, and I can go back if I have a follow-up question, or maybe I just want to say thank you. That answer will also get emailed to C, and then C can reply and go back and forth, and that whole ongoing exchange becomes visible to other shoppers. Now, another thing I can do here, if you see that share button, is take this question and send it to my friends on Facebook or on Twitter. And we've we spent a lot of time figuring out how to do this right, and we think we've got it right. One of the challenges with this model is that the kind of question you might ask a fellow shopper is not necessarily the same question you would ask a friend. So I might ask a fellow shopper something like, did the silver tarnish, or were the stones secure? The kind of thing that somebody who owns the ring could answer. The kind of question I'd ask a friend would be more like, do you think this would look fabulous on me? The first question is something for people who don't know me, but do know the item. And the second kind of question is a question for somebody who may not know the item, but does know me. And so you might want to, rewrite the question before you sent it. So right here, thinking of getting this for my wife, she's a big fan of Diana, did you like it? Now that is not the right question to ask my friends who don't own the ring, but I might rewrite this to say something like, do you think Cynthia would like this? Because my friends know that Cynthia is my wife. So I'm not going to, but you get the idea. If I clicked Facebook or Twitter, this would shoot that question out to Facebook. I'm logged in with my real account here, so I think I'm not going to stir up my friends by tweeting them about whether Cynthia would like the Kate Middleton ring. But you get the idea. And then, of course, that link goes out to Facebook with the picture of the item and a link back to the store page along with the question, and a link that says, help George answer this question. And they can answer it within Facebook, or they can answer it back here on the site. And all of that generates more links back to this item page as a way of driving traffic from Facebook and from Twitter. Now, going down the page, one other thing I want to illustrate from here is, I think I may have gone past. So here, do you see this heading that says questions about related items? I'm going to actually jump the gun on my later FAQ page and tell you one. So later on in the presentation, I'm going to go over some questions that people frequently ask us. And one of those questions is, what happens if a question is asked about an item that's infrequently purchased? So there are no owners or few owners available to send the question to. And this is one of the tools we use to address that. The system lets you connect an infrequently bought item to a similar item that's popular and has lots of owners. And then it shows up, if that's done, the question shows up like this. It's in the same thread, but it says it's under a heading called Questions About Related Items, and the related item is pictured here. So on imitations, a very similar ring to the Princess Diana ring is sold as the Kate Middleton ring. And it's actually not the exact same ring. It looks quite similar. But if somebody had a question about one of them and it was an infrequent item and it had been connected to the other, that makes the pool of people available to answer that question the combination of the two. So you can see here we've actually grabbed the questions about the Kate Middleton ring and made them visible here under the Princess Diana ring so that there's even more content available. And we think this is a pretty powerful feature that we invented here, because not only does it make sure that questions get answered because there are always answers available, it also takes that great user content and makes it available in more different places in the site. And this can be done on an ad hoc basis, or you can actually set up clusters of items. So anytime a question is asked about one item in the cluster, it's automatically available to all other people who are reading about any other item in that cluster. The last thing I want to illustrate here is this last section called Comments from People Who Bought This. So one of the other products in our product suite is called Purchase Sharing, and it runs on the order confirmation page. And when somebody has just purchased, they're on that thank you page with the shipping information. A box appears saying thank you for making our site a friendly place to shop, and help other customers by telling them why you chose the items you chose. And we get over 5% of people on checkout are putting in an answer to that question, say why you chose this item. And that really generates a lot more user content that then flows back into the question and answer widget here. So you can see it's a pretty popular item. It's selling well. So they may even be doing better than a 5% answer rate here. That produces a lot of comments here. I'm just scrolling through. Also, great user content. And if you look at it, it's not the same as a review. This is something that people are answering right on checkout when they've just purchased. So you don't get the details about the pluses and the minuses, and I've had the product for a year and here's how it's held up. We're basically just trying to bottle that positive user sentiment that people have at the moment of purchase. So if you look at the comments here, they just tend to be these pithy, positive things. I like this one better than the one my sister got me. Kate Middleton, what can I say? It was a birthday gift. I love Princess Diana. Just all, raw positivity. We did a sentiment analysis on this, and I think it was a 0.3% negativity rate. There's no reason for people to be negative at checkout. But so that, produces this whole, wealth of user content. And one reason I'm sort of pointing out how much, user content's being created here is because one of the benefits of it is for search engine optimization. And I just want to say a word about that. I don't know, how many of you followed, a few weeks ago, Google came up with a major revision to their search algorithm that they called the farmer release, meaning it was meant to stomp out the content farmers. And the consequence of that is that there's been a higher premium than ever before placed by Google on unique content, content that they can't find anywhere else in all the sites they index. And since a lot of merchants have the same content on their sites, because it's often the product description that came from the manufacturer and it's repeated on every site, Google has a lot of trouble with this new farmer release. And we've had prioritizing merchants the way they used to be is the trouble Google's having. And so we've had merchants in our network say that their organic search traffic dropped off literally 70% since the farmer release came out. And one of the great ways to fight back against that is with unique content. And one of the great things about this user-generated content is it's always unique. So if you have a store where your product descriptions are similar or identical to the product description elsewhere, maybe even just maybe it's original content to you, but you sell through Amazon and you fed it to Amazon and it's showing up uniquely in Amazon, you may also be experiencing a hit from that farmer release, and getting this kind of user-generated content on your site is a great way to fight back against that. So like I said, I would point out a bunch of aspects of the product going through this one site, but let me jump to a few different ones and give you a sense of sort of the variety of what the implementation looks like. Go Jane here is a tween fashion brand, and they've got a nice clean site here. It's one of the larger Yahoo stores. And you can see right here, again below the Add to Cart button, a box, got questions, ask people who bought this. And this item has 3 questions about it, 19 answers, and 2 of those checkout comments. So I'll just open and show you. It looks a lot like the other one. And you can see there's a picture of the item, and below it a whole bunch of that user content and a couple of those checkout comments. And let me show you just a couple of other stores from the front end before I show you what it looks like going through. Very different kind of site. Dog IDs. Not surprisingly, perhaps they sell dog IDs, and they're also a Yahoo store. So again, I picked one that had some good content about it, but underneath the product image here, they've put this button, got questions, ask people who bought this, and they've got 4 questions, 28 answers, 17 comments. Parenthetically, I bought this very dog tag for my mother-in-law. She was very pleased. So you can see here that first question, how many clips can you put on a tag? And Chuck B., one of their staff members, jumped in, but they've also got a lot of social answers about that. I'm just scrolling down so you can see how many different answers they got, and a whole bunch of checkout comments too. And I'll show you one more. They often look quite similar, but you get the idea. Paramount Supplements, I want to show you, which is both a Yahoo store and a Fast Pivot customer. And this is actually another great example because They sell online products. Sell products online for bodybuilders. It's actually not inexpensive stuff at all, and a huge question that shoppers have on this site tends to be, does it work? And they really want validation from other customers. So if you look on this, the type of question that we see varies widely from store to store. Like, for example, on Go Jane, in their shoe area, they often get questions about comfort. On their fashion side, they often get much more open-ended questions about, would this look good for my prom? On Paramount Supplements, they get a lot of questions related to the efficacy of the product. And it seems to be making a huge difference when you look at the conversion data, and I'll show you some conversion data later on. You can see the impact it makes. So here's a question, this is a typical one from Eric C. I'm looking to bulk up my muscle mass. Does this really work? Any problems with crashing after workouts? And this person got one social answer, a very positive one, and then a staff answer. Jason from the staff jumped in to provide a staff answer as well. So you get the idea. This is what the product looks like live and in production. And now I'm going to switch gears completely and go into a demo environment. It's actually our live QA environment. So I should.
And George, while you pull that up, I just want to encourage the attenders, if you guys do have a question during the presentation, feel free to ask the question. Over in the right-hand panel, there is a question box, and I see a few of you already asking questions. And we're going to start interacting with those questions later on after George has kind of walked through some of the demo. So we will certainly kind of get to your questions. But if you do have a question during the presentation, don't hesitate to ask over in that question box.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been known to get on a roll and not even look up. So actually, if you're monitoring the questions, feel free to just interrupt me if it seems like there's a good moment to get one of those answered. So what we have here is our test environment. We set up Best of Israel, products from the Holy Land. And this happens to also be a Yahoo store. We even use Yahoo stores as our own development environment. So it's a small list of products here, but I'm going to go into the frankincense and myrrh. And we haven't spent a lot of effort on making our test store look attractive here, but you can see we've had 34 questions about the frankincense, and they're all test questions. So let's see, what will I ask about the frankincense and myrrh? Let's see, how long does a bottle last? Okay, something I might want an answer from a fellow customer to. I'm going to go ahead and ask it. Now the next thing it's going to do is give me the choice between asking with an email address so that I can have the answers sent to me immediately, or asking anonymously, in which case it tells me I will have to check back to see the answers. And we let people sign up the old-fashioned way with a form, but just to show you how easy it is, I'm going to go ahead and use Facebook. And nothing's getting posted to Facebook with this. We're just using Facebook as an identity provider. And since I was already logged into Facebook, it didn't even ask me to click anything. If I was not logged into Facebook, it would ask me to identify myself to Facebook first. But you can see how quick that was, and no clicks involved. And importantly, it never took me off the site. Now that my question's been submitted, the next thing is it encourages me to send this question out to Facebook or Twitter, the same thing you saw before. And it says, how long does a bottle last? Now, again, this is not a question I would ask my friends because they don't have experience with the product. But I might well rewrite this question to say something like, oh, I'm stumped. What would I ask my friends about frankincense and myrrh? Do you think I should wear this for the team meeting next week? Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to ask that. But you get the idea. So I can send this out to my friends on Facebook, and this is a very, sort of bold appeal to me to do this. So we get a pretty good sharing rate from this. But I'm just going to cancel out of this. I'm not going to share it. And now you can see I'm back on the page. There's the question I just asked. How long does a bottle last? Thank you. The question has been submitted, and we'll email you as soon as someone answers. So my job as a shopper is done now. Now, I'm going to go into our test Google store here. And sometimes these questions take a second to come through on the mail server. So if I can't find a question, if the question hasn't come through yet, I'm just going to go down and grab another one. Okay. Well, I'm going to grab one that was asked recently. Give me 1 second to find that. There we are. Can you answer a question about frankincense and myrrh? Okay. So this is an important thing that I want to show you here. This is what the email that customers who purchased in the past get looks like. It's on the store's letterhead, Best of Israel, and it's framed like this. We did spend a lot of time optimizing this copy. Hi, Gadi. To help make our store a friendly place to shop, we enable shoppers to ask our customers questions about the products they bought, because sometimes input from a fellow customer is the most helpful. So that's the framing. George, and you don't know him, but here's his smiling face, has a question about this item that you bought on this date. So in case this was a while ago and you'd forgotten, you can see, yes, indeed, you bought it. Can you help George? There's a picture of the item, there's George's question, and then there's a link to answer the question. Now, one thing I want to point out in this email as we go by, down here at the bottom, this is the opt-out link. We won't send you questions often, but if you'd rather not get any, click here. One of the questions we get all the time is, how are my customers going to respond to getting emails from shoppers about the things they bought? Are they going to be offended by it? Are they going to feel like it's too many emails from the store? And I want to show you just a couple of key stats. Across our whole network of stores using this product, we are getting an answer rate to this email of better than 7%. And that's not just a click-through rate, that's the click-through plus submitting the answer. So clicking that answer question link, going all the way through, which, if you think of this as sort of a loyalty marketing kind of email, a 7% response rate, I think most people would agree, is a very positive response rate. In contrast to that, this opt-out link at the bottom, which is not a 2-point type pale gray opt-out link like we usually see. This is right in the body of the message. It's quite prominent. We're getting an opt-out rate of under 0.5%. So, north of 7% answer rate, south of 0.5% opt-out rate, which gives us really good confidence that this is an email that's being well received by customers. So let me just ask Gadi, can I go back to the other question, or should I work with this one? Okay, let me just go back to the inbox so I can follow the thread of that question that got asked before. So this is, I'm just switching over to the question, how long does a bottle last? And now that was me, I asked it, I'm going to go ahead and answer the question. So now I'm switching roles here. Now I'm Jan, the answerer, not George, the asker. And this is the experience. It brought me back to the site. The answer form popped right up. So I can say, how long does the bottle last? It lasted me about 6 months. A little goes a long way. And I submit the answer. Now, the answer's already been submitted and we're done because since, as the answer I tracked in from an email, it treated me as validated. There was none of this, thanks for your answer, go back to your email to prove who you really are. It's just the cleanest possible flow. But it does also give me the opportunity here to use Facebook if I wanted to add a photo to go with my answer or to create a password so I can manage my answer in the future. But I'm just going to show you none of that's needed. I can just click done and be right out of here. Now, one other important feature to show you. This is optional. Not all partners use this, but many do. You just brought one of your past customers back to the site. And that's good from just an awareness and loyalty point of view no matter what. They came back in an answer the question frame of mind, not necessarily in a shopping frame of mind. But if you want to try and get an impulse purchase out of that person while they're back, one thing you can do is offer them an incentive right here. And we did a lot of research on this, and whether you want to offer the incentive up front. And one thing we've discovered is actually this model, where the person came back, with a 7% response rate. So a lot of people are coming back, but without any expectation of a reward. And then you offer them this reward as a thank you for contributing to the community. Just goes over really well. People respond really well to that, sort of feeling of an authentic thank you. So they get the coupon code here that they can use for a purchase. You can set whatever parameters you usually do around your coupon codes if you want it to be used right away. We email it automatically to the person so that they don't need to write it down here. They've got the thank you. And then the last piece, now that they're in a good mood because they just got that thank you, is we say, do you want to share your answer on Facebook or on Twitter? So now we're getting answer sharing. And because you often can't, you don't have room to put the whole answer in there, we frame it as my answer to this question, and then people click back to the site to see what the answer was. So again, I'm going to click out. But we're doing a lot of social engineering all at once with this to try and squeeze every last bit of a benefit out of it. And of course, when the person's done, lo and behold, there they are back on the product page and on the site. So you get the idea. The last piece here, hopefully the answer has gone through. Yeah, so at the top you can see there's the coupon code that was sent to the answerer. But now let me go back to being George. The last piece of the cycle is, as George, I got an email saying, Jan answered the question you asked. And you can see here's my question. And below it there's Jan's answer. Now the last thing we want to do is get me back to the site. So if I'd already completed my purchase, great. That's a win. But if I hadn't, there's of course the prominent Buy Now button. But maybe I'm not ready to buy. We still try and lure the shopper back with a message like, thank Jan, or ask a follow-up, or see all answers. So let's say I want to thank Jan. I'm not ready to buy, but I want to thank Jan. I click there, and it brings me right back to the site. I can see the thread of dialogue. I can type in my answer. Thanks, Jan. Jan gets that answer. And when I'm all done, once again, in case I wrote something wrong, do I want to share it? And there I can see my answer, thanks Jan, right below his. And when I'm out of here, I'm back on the product page. And maybe after that good experience, I really am ready to buy after all. So that's what I wanted to show you. You've seen it live in production. You've seen it, the whole cycle. And let me just go back to my PowerPoint here and just make a few additional points about how the system works, and then we'll open it up to questions. So these are some of the questions. Maybe I'm going to anticipate some of the ones that came through, but these are some of the questions that we typically get. So what's the integration like? One thing I'd say up front is Fast Pivot is a great partner to work with for this. They know how to do it, and they know how to get the most possible out of it. So you might well want to work with them. But at the risk of stealing their thunder, it's not that hard. I'll just tell you the main elements. There's a little bit of JavaScript that goes on the item pages to render the question widget. There's a little bit of JavaScript that goes on the order confirmation page to capture the order data and also to render that purchase sharing widget. And then there's a few feeds. There's a batch feed you do of the historical orders when you first get set up. There's a catalog feed, and there's a feed of the email opt-outs, so that people who have said they don't want to get emails they get taken out of the answerer pool. So anyone who said they don't want to get emails from your store would never get a question email. So it's not a lot of work. Typically, stores can get it up and running in about an afternoon. Another question we often get is, what about inappropriate content? Pardon me. If we're emailing questions to our past customers, I wouldn't want somebody to go in and say something nasty and email it to 60 past customers and have that lead to trouble. So there's an entire moderation interface, which I skipped over here, but it provides a lot of rich functionality. It provides checking for blacklisted words. It provides multiple states, so a question can be sent. A question can be posted without being sent, which is something you often want to do if it's a good question, but it's really more of a staff question than a social question. Or it can be removed completely. It can be linked to other products to increase the answer pool. It can be flagged for customer service so that if you have a different person doing the moderation from the person doing the customer service, you can escalate a question that needs attention. So there's a really robust workflow in there, and it makes sure that inappropriate content never sees the light of day. Now this is the one where I jumped the gun, infrequently bought products. So that mechanism for connecting to related items is a big way of making sure even infrequently bought items get their questions answered. But also, of course, there's the staff. And a lot of merchants tell us that just that ability to have a direct dialogue with a customer on the site who has a question and go back and forth, and not just answer it, but have that dialogue exposed for other customers and also have it available for indexing by search engines, is a big win. So between those two mechanisms, there's really no reason that a question, even about an infrequently bought item, would ever go unanswered. Now, I mentioned that customers are responding well to those question emails, but even customers who respond well might not want to get too many of them. So there's an engine underneath that keeps track of when questions have been sent to any particular customers. And once somebody has received an email, they're actually taken out of the question answerer pool for a period of a month. And then once they're eligible, they go back in at the back of the line. So that makes sure that the most questions that anybody could ever get is not more than one a month. But in practice, it ends up being much, much less than that. So I think we've not had a single incident that we're aware of yet where somebody got more questions than they were happy answering. And of course, in addition, there is that very visible opt-out. And then the final question we sometimes get is, people are very conscious of third-party tools on their pages and the impact that that has on page load. I will not tell you that we figured out some magic formula to have a 0 page load impact. What we have done is really follow the very best practices that are available for it. So the content is all served up from a CDN. So it's served up as quickly as it can possibly be and locally. We use various compression technologies to minimize all the file sizes, pardon me, and we use caching so that after the file has loaded the first time, all of those JavaScript files are resident locally, and after the first load, all the subsequent loads are milliseconds. The subsequent loads are trivial, and even the initial load is fragments of a second, just because like I said, we've spent a lot of time optimizing that. So I can't say it's 0, but we've gone to great lengths to make it as as optimal as it can be. And the last thing I wanted to do by way of recap was just to touch on some of the benefits that come out of all these different functions that I just showed you. So one, the really in-your-face one, of course, is the increase in conversions. There's benefits to the shopper who just asks the question and gets all those answers, which serve as reminders to bring them back. And then there's all that user content available for other customers who may not ask a question but can read it, and that helps move them closer to purchase by either seeing questions they might not have asked but had in the back of their mind get answered, or just by seeing the presence of all that dialogue from real customers about items is validating. I mentioned the SEO benefits, which are becoming increasingly important since Google has been tweaking their algorithms. And then I mentioned the benefit of bringing those past customers back. With a 7% answer rate, that's a pretty good loyalty or retention marketing kind of email. And then one that I didn't touch on is the value of the insight that you can get from looking at that kind of dialogue. I'll give you a couple examples. Imitations, and you can find this actually if you go to our website, TurnToNetworks.com. There's a case study there with imitations. And their CEO talked about this example where they had a question from somebody about one of their earrings, whether it was clip-on, magnetic, or for pierced ears. And they realized when they read that question that the photography didn't show the post on the earring. And so they redid the photography about that item. And she points out that that kind of pre-purchase insight is something that you will never get from a rating or a review. a customer would write about whether they liked the earring, whether it held up. But after someone's got a review, got the product, they are never going to think back to whether the information on the product page was clear. So we love reviews. This isn't meant to bash reviews, but questions do give you a different kind of insight about the user's shopping experience on the site than you can get from reviews. I'll give you another example. One of the stores in our network gets a lot of questions about the price. The price is available on the site, but just in a way that a certain number of shoppers don't find. And the fact they were able to identify a surprising number of customers asking, what is the price, is causing them to rethink the way they're showing that information on the website. And I wanted to wrap up with a case study from a Yahoo store. This is a fashion retailer using the system. This is data from the first 3 weeks in March to give you a sense of the kind of results that you can achieve from this. So I'm looking here first at the questions on the popular items. So at least 20 of these items were sold, and they got 198 questions in those first 3 weeks about those items. Of those 198, 189, so all except for 9, received at least one social answer. And I think they all got answered because this store has pretty good staff coverage. These are just social answers, answers from other shoppers. And of those 189 that got at least one, the average number was 5.6 social responses, which A, is fabulous content, and B, means that each person that asked those questions that put in an email got between 5 and 6 on average what are in fact reminder emails. Hey, you were thinking of buying this. Here's an answer to that question you asked, and links back to complete the purchase. So great conversion marketing tool there. Another thing that's going on is from the time that the question was first sent, in other words, after it had made it through moderation, the median response time for the first social answer was only 43 minutes. And again, I hope this number really impresses you. If you look at a bulletin board kind of model for getting questions answered, that number would be days or weeks or typically never. So 43 minutes median, which means half of them are coming in even faster than that to the first social answer, it's kind of well, let me just say it's an achievement that we're really proud of. The answer rate on this particular site to those question emails is better than 11%. I mentioned that the average for the whole network is between 7 and 8%, but on this site it's running better than 11%. And in those 3 weeks, they brought over 1,300 customers back to the site to answer questions. And then if you look at really the bottom line, overall engagement, over 20% of their orders were coming from shoppers interacting with TurnTo. Now we know that we're not causing all of those. Some of those people would have bought anyway. But it's really strong evidence that on this site, Q&A has become a core utility that their shoppers are using to make purchase decisions. And if you look just at the conversion effect, shoppers who interact with TurnTo are converting at better than a 7% rate, whereas they have a slightly under 1% rate for the baseline, people who don't interact with TurnTo. And as I said, we know we're not causing all of that 700% lift, but it does some part of that. I think the store would say they're very comfortable saying is being caused by the interaction with the TurnTo system. So that's the that's the information I wanted to share with you. Let me here's the contact information if you want to follow up with us. But I think we've got some time left, and I would love to answer questions. Kurt, do you want to? Yeah. Do you want to feed me the ones you think we should focus on?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. And thanks for the great presentation, George. It's always neat to see how these social interactions. I mean, the social web is such a changing and growing and molding medium. It's neat to see how these social interactions can really, benefit commerce. And I think, this is just kind of one way that we are starting to see that social commerce, so social conversations really benefiting, e-commerce and more specifically Yahoo stores as well, too. But George, some of the questions that came back were around SEO. Does the user content actually sit on your page? And also someone else kind of was looking and they didn't notice the comments showing up in the source code. So can you just speak a little bit more to the SEO value of of TurnTo and how it does kind of bring some SEO benefit to your pages?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, and that's exactly the right question. This is not a super short answer, but I want to give you the right answer. As I went through, you definitely realize you want the content on the item page. That's the best way to do it. As it's rendered in the widget now, it is not directly on the item page. It's served up by the JavaScript, and it's not indexed. And let me see if I have an example here of what it looks like when it's been put on the item page. Well, I'd have to dig around for a little. Sorry, I didn't have that one queued up. We can send around, if you like, an example of what it looks like. We provide a couple tools to make sure that the content is indexable. The first one is a XML feed of all of the content that is generated by the system. And that comes in a couple forms. One is a batch XML feed of everything, which you can use to insert it in your database and then serve it up on your site from your database any way you like. The other is an XML feed of just the individual item data, which can be used to inject that content into the page as vanilla HTML. So it's in the most search engine friendly possible way to get that content into the page. Now, this is a new feature for us. We're just starting to roll it out on a number of stores, and this is not something we've yet rolled out on Yahoo stores. And we do know from experience that while we've got, we've done a lot of Yahoo store implementations, and we really feel we've got it. So it's pretty turnkey on Yahoo stores. This aspect, just full disclosure, we've not yet got experience with, and so we need to figure out whether there are any Yahoo store related issues with getting that content injected directly into the page. We have another way of doing it, which is a plan B because it's not as optimal, but we provide on the TurnTo domain a search-optimized microsite for this content, where every link from that page goes back to your item page. So this is basically just a pure SEO play where we are trying to get that item indexed for you under our domain and then link the traffic through to you. Obviously better to get your own pages, the indexing done on your own pages, but the nice thing is this is flip a switch easy. So if getting the content directly onto your pages is tricky, we can literally just flip a switch and have the pass-through traffic, as well as a little bit of link love that comes from the cross-domain linking. So that is the long and not simple answer to the SEO question.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks. David asked, is there a way to designate a product champion, a buyer who's kind of particularly enthusiastic about advocating a product or even your brand in general? So not necessarily having just internal employees kind of flagged, when they respond, but is there any way to have a product champion, if you will?
Yeah, David, thank you for that one. You're anticipating here. That is a feature that's coming later in the year, but we've heard that from a number of folks who've said, and I can give you a little insight into the way we're planning to handle it, which is the nice thing about going after leveraging your full customer base is it's everyone. But some portion of those people are the enthusiasts who are not only willing to answer a lot of questions, but they may be willing to answer questions about products that are not necessarily the products they bought. They may take a whole category and say, if there's a question someone's asking about this product, I'm willing to do research on their behalf because I love the store, I love the category, I love sharing my knowledge. Maybe I'm getting some kind of an incentive to do it. And so that notion of an expert or a champion that can be designated at the category level is something that's coming later in the year. So watch for it.
Very cool. Can you speak to, and do you have any metrics on how heavy the JavaScript is and how, what kind of impact the page load gets when you do install the JavaScript?
I'm not going to do full justice to that. I made the mistake of telling our one of the guys from our customer support team to to focus on the customers during this call. I'll tell you what I know, and it's the incomplete answer. I think I mentioned the different approaches that we're using to optimize it. I've seen a bunch of benchmarks on various sites. The impact on the initial page load is typically sub half a second. After the initial page load, it's cached, and it's just a few microseconds. So it's really trivial after it's cached. And I mentioned that we use a number of different tools to get to that level of optimization. And so we use a CDN to serve up all of the content, which gives both reliability and speed, especially across geographies. Limits some of the geographic latency. And then we also use various compression techniques on the files to minimize them. And then, of course, there's the there's the local caching, so that once the initial load is done, all the subsequent loads are fast. One other thing that some partners choose to do is to not put it on the most common landing pages, like, say, for example, the home page, so that that load time issue doesn't hit on the initial landing. It only hits once someone has navigated down to the item pages.
Okay, very cool. And if anyone else has any other questions, don't hesitate to ask it over in that right-hand side in that little webinar bar, if you will. You can certainly ask your questions, and we'll get to it in just a minute here. I do have another question, George. Can you just explain the pricing model?
Oh, sure. So we've tried to keep it as simple as we possibly can. It's a flat monthly license fee. The whole thing, it's a typical software as a service license. So there's a 3-month trial initially, for a free trial. There's no setup fee. We are confident enough that people who are trying it are literally all continuing to use it. So we're happy to give away 3 months for people to experience it. And then the license fee is monthly after that. It can cancel at any time, so there's no commitment. We do offer a little discount for people who want to make a full year commitment. We'll throw in a couple extra months for free. And the pricing starts for small stores at $150 a month. And then there's a scale factor, so it does go up from there for larger stores.
Okay. Well, great, George. That's great. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. George, thanks for sharing just this neat little product that you guys are developing. It really is kind of just brings again some of those social conversations instead of happening on Facebook or Twitter or somewhere else. You're kind of inviting those users to actually interact on your website, and that's really that's really neat. Got another question that just came in. For companies that have a designated speaker, how much effort does that person need to contribute, or for someone who has a dedicated person to respond?
So like a moderator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So well, I'll tell you, it's definitely volume dependent. So bigger sites, it's more. But just as good development practice, we've taken on it. We took on ourselves the burden of moderating all of our partner sites for the first few months that it was up, because we just wanted to see every single question and make sure that, as they say, we were eating our own dog food and living the moderation system and, fixing anything that, if we weren't comfortable using it ourselves, we didn't want to push it out to our partners. And, it was for all of these sites combined, for us, it was a few minutes a day. So okay. we've got a whole bunch of different alert mechanisms built into the moderation tool. So you can set, if you're a really small site, you may want to have, each time a question comes in, it can generate an email to the designated moderator so that it doesn't, sit around and age. You can also do it on a daily basis. There's you can use an email to the customer service rep. So if there's an escalation path, You can use an email alert mechanism for that. And then the larger sites just tend to have the person who's on duty, they just keep a browser tab with the moderation interface open all the time and periodically just go in to check and clear it out.
Very cool. Very cool. George, why don't you bring up just that contact page? If you do have any more questions, you can simply visit TurnToNetworks.com. You could also visit FastPivot and email one of your project managers if you're already working with us, or you can simply visit our website and fill out our contact form. But you can visit TurnToNetworks.com for more information. Also, you can email gbenmark@turnto.com. That's Gadi's email address. He's been quiet on this webinar, but he is a great person and a great resource to, if you do have any questions, any additional questions regarding installation, integration, and how to get started and moving forward, give Gadi an email, shoot him an email, or you can give him a call at 917-763-7868. You can, again, easily visit the website, TurnToNetworks.com, or give Gadi an email. You can shoot him an email or give him a call. Or, like I said, you could also visit FastPivot.com and also fill out the contact form, and we'd be happy to just talk to you about some of the implementations that we've done for TurnTo, how easy it is, how to actually embed it, where to embed it, and we can also help with the implementation as well, too. If you have custom templates on your Yahoo store, you might need a little bit of help actually finding a place to put it in. So we'd be more than happy to kind of assist you in integrating TurnTo's AskOwners system. Well, great, guys. George, Gadi, thanks so much for giving this demo. I want to thank everyone else for attending. We really hope that you enjoyed kind of just learning about how, again, bringing those social conversations to your website can really benefit your store, and just learn a little bit more about TurnTo's product and just really how easy it is to make that happen. So thanks for joining us, George, and thanks for sharing.
Yeah, really a privilege to have the chance to do it. Thanks for giving us the chance.
Well, great. Well, guys, we're going to kind of conclude. It's at the top of the hour here, so we're going to wrap up. But again, thanks everyone for coming, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.